Hi, I want to welcome everybody to the About page for Garden Gnomes Etc. A lot of people like to go to the About page, just find a little bit on how maybe it came about or whatever. With Garden Gnomes Etc., the first thing, kind of some of the things that describe it is magical, enchanted, mythical, mysterious, whimsical, fairyland, fantasy type of stuff. And you're probably thinking, yeah, he got onto Google and he looked up the thesaurus.com. Well, yeah, that's pretty close. But anyways, Garden Gnomes Etc. Actually, there's three parts of Garden Gnomes Etc. It's the garden aspect, which I don't offer plants. It's the gnome and the etc. First, this was probably germinated, or the seed was planted about 45 years ago. When I was a little kid, I grew up on a 12-acre lake. It was more of a nature preserve. We raised thousands and thousands of ducks. My job was to man the incubators and turn into duck eggs, and we had crate after crate of ducks all over. We each had our own little pond, like a quarter-acre type of thing, where we grew bass and frogs and such, but we had our own gardens. And it started off with the dahlias. My grandfather took us down there, bought us a couple of dahlia plants and planted them, and they were kind of the everyday stuff, dinner plate, the maroon, and then there was a purple pom-pom with the white. But that kind of grew into 160 plant collection, different types. Since we had the lake and we were close to Trickers, it blossomed into water gardening. So he took me down. We had a couple, I think it was a couple hardy water lilies. Finally I ended up with a collection of like 40. I had all the different lotus and such. And you're probably thinking, what does that have to do with Garden Gnomes etc.? Well, the big part of it is I collected many types of plants. Any type of plant to be collected. I had 10, 15, 20. I even had a collection of dahlia, or hostas, daylilies, and such. But the thing that kind of lacked in it, and it didn't lack in my purpose, but a lot of people, they look at your garden and say, oh, that's pretty, but that's it. There was nothing really to bring it out. And that's where, when I met my wife, and actually, when I met her and some of the dates, I used to take her a lot of dahlia flowers. So that was a major thing in my pocket, like a thumbs up. So I got interested in her hobby. So one time we went to this hobby place. It was a ceramic shop, and I wasn't too keen on a lot of the stuff, but something that caught my eye was these things here. And believe it or not, as much as I was into gardening and plants, when I saw these, I says, what are these? So, and she was kind of calm about it, but she sells the Garden Gnomes. I says, Garden Gnomes. So we walked around looking at other stuff, and I kept coming back to these. I says, boy, how cool would those be in my garden if I painted them to the colors that I wanted to fit my garden area. So the next day, I called her up and says, hey, I says, you know what were those things I was looking at? And she says, what do you mean? I says, those little funny people. And she says, those are garden gnomes. And I said, oh, okay. So we went out on another date, and I says, would you care if we go back to that ceramic shop? I wouldn't mind looking at these things again, because I had some ideas for them. So we went back, and unfortunately, they don't come in abyss. They came in a greenware where there was all kinds of type of seams, and you had to clean them, and they were a lot of, like, 12 bucks back in the 80s. And it didn't stop there. You had to take them home, clean them, you made a big mess, and then on top of it, you had to pay to take them back to have them fire them. Then you had to go back and pick them up. So back, I think it was like in the 80s somewhere, they had them in the bisque form. I think they were like 29 bucks back then. But I says, boy, that's a ripoff. How come these are so cheap? And, well, they fired these, and somebody had to go through and clean them and such and so forth. So I ended up buying one, and it seems like wherever I go, if I'm interested in something, I can always depend on going back, and the price is always raised, especially like Home Depot. I'm always with my book, and they're looking. It must be those little things in the sky. They're those black cameras. They're viewing me. And every time I go and get in there and figure a project, I can always depend on things to be higher. So the Garden Gnome, I actually blossomed about 20 years ago, and the seed was growing, and still I didn't know this was going to come about. So today I have close to probably 100 different gnomes, and then you can add another 50 trolls and stuff, all for the garden, all stuff that makes kind of unique crafts for kids, and it also is good for the garden hobbyists and the painting and whatever. And also it fits me good because I'm trying to enhance my garden with all my plants, try to add some color, try to add some style, some personality. Now the ETC part of the Garden Gnomes ETC is everything else, and that's really a bigger portion, and it has the different cool waterfalls, the ponds, and so forth. But we have a universal rock. These are cool. They're actually casted from real rock formations, brought back. Molds are made. The top level of it is actually rock particles, sand, and natural elements, which make them really cool. So with that being in mind, we can make some of these. On this side is a perfect place for do-it-yourself. You can make your own water feature, and I don't like to use water feature. I like to make a complete water garden. What makes a water garden? Of course, it's the water garden with the plants, with maybe the figurines, maybe if you want the different types of lighting, maybe you want to attack it by air with some of the wind chimes and wind spinners. But it's a whole entire community of things to make a sort of like a spectacular centerpiece, attraction for the yard, a wow, something where you want to go out and see it. Where my plants, no matter how many plants I had, I mean, I could get lost in there, but most people wouldn't. So when it comes with the ETC, it's the different types of water gardening, such as the ponds. We offer a lot of the foggers, the pond lights, the different types of wind spinners, wind chimes, some gongs, fountains. I mean, there's a host of different things to put your water garden, to make it magical, mystical, and thank goodness for thesaurus. I can come up with all these things, but it's very easy to do things yourself. And another thing that it does, maybe you have a couple kids, young kids, you want to go out there, and because a lot of kids, they're memorized by the water and the little pond, and never before. This is the opportunity where you can make your own special water garden, add some gnomes or trolls, put a little misting to it, some stuff at night. We have some garden type of, seeding, such as the cedar stuff, just the stuff that is known for the gardens, like your benches and your rocking chairs and such. We do have a line of spectacular day beds. Those are a little bit more. There's some real cool garden hammocks, fire bowls, but anything that kind of goes in the realm of trying to bring your gardens to life, try to make things look pretty spectacular. So that's about where we're at here. So I want to thank you for coming by, visiting the About page. Have fun with it. And like I said, there's a lot of do-it-yourself, whether you want to do a craft, whether you want to do, if you're a painting hobbyist for ceramics, whether you want to do, and actually, two of the biggest and oldest hobbies around, they're fading away. The ceramic part is completely disappearing, and as such as the garden aspect. People are getting away from that stuff. So back to the thing of trying to build some of these little things with your kids, even grandparents out there. Maybe you have somebody coming in to visit. Your kids are coming in out of town or something with their grandkids. Maybe, I mean, some of these waterfalls and stuff we they're on a small, you can put them in a half a day. They're very small ponds. Maybe you want to put a cascading fall. Maybe you want to do a bubbler rock. Maybe you want to do a bigger thing. But that way you guys can grow through the years and say, hey, we want to add some fog to it for nighttime. Maybe we want to paint a troll or a gnome or something. But that's where we're at. So thank you for stopping by.